Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Ben Pope from the Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago, where Conor Bedard is headed, are brought to you by the Waddling Dog Pub. One of Victoria's historic watering holes welcomes you to come see why they're the talk of the peninsula. Their 50-seat patio is now open, Rick, and the return of no-cover UFC nights slotted to return in June, all while showing all the NHL, NBA, CFL action. Also, swing by their attached liquor store to pick up your Donnie and Dolly swag. There are countless reasons to come, sit, and stay at the Waddling Dog. Chicago Blackhawks winning yesterday's NHL 2023 draft lottery. They're going to pick Conor Bedard, who's from, of course, North Vancouver, joining us now to talk, and he's been on our show a few times, to talk about all of that. From the Chicago Sun-Times, Ben Pope. Ben, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an exciting time to be in Chicago for the first time in a few years.
Have you got your season tickets yet?
Yeah, a lot of people have. I guess the number you're referencing is in the first hour and a half last night, they'd sold 2.5 million in new sales, and the latest update this morning actually is up to 5.2 million in 12 hours, including 1,200 full season plans. So pretty staggering numbers in terms of just the immediate boom of interest in this team for next season, even though we're still 50 days away from them actually selecting Bedard officially.
You touched on it there, but what was the general reaction among hockey fans in Chicago to the Blackhawks winning that lottery?
Yeah, a ton of excitement. Obviously, this team has not been the most relevant the past few years. Attendance has declined a bit, even though it's still been pretty decent, better than expected. But just an enormous surge of excitement about this. The timing of Bedard's arrival coming just a few months after Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews leave the franchise is just rather unbelievably fortunate. We were looking at a situation where almost all of the jerseys next season that you would see around the arena would be for players no longer with the team, and now there's a new guy to market and a new guy for fans to watch and follow and to buy his jersey. So just extremely fortunate for the franchise to kind of get this gift, and also obviously very good for their on-ice success and accelerating the rebuild moving forward. So a lot of excitement everywhere. I know at the Cubs game, they're hosting the Cardinals this week, and they put it up on the video board there after the lottery, and there was a big roar that went on. I think the White Sox are playing in Kansas City, and I heard there was a Let's Go Blackhawks chant that broke out in Kansas City. So excitement all over the place about this, and should definitely create a lot of interest throughout the offseason.
So, Ben, when Kyle Davidson said rebuild, so let's stock up the draft picks, but now this summer you got Bedard, does that change? Like, now you got a ton of cap space. Do you go out and get some veterans? Does the philosophy change at all this summer, Ben, do you think?
I think it'll change a little bit. It's not going to mean that they're no longer in a rebuild. Davidson has been extremely steadfast and patient and dedicated to this, and I'm sure he's going to stay in it. But yeah, I think you're a little bit more aggressive now, just getting some supporting cast for Bedard so he's not completely thrown to the wolves next year. Probably going to have Lucas Reichel as one of the other first-line players. He's fully ready to graduate to the NHL full-time, and is going to form part of that new core with Bedard. But yeah, maybe you're a little bit more aggressive, getting a few other veterans to play on the other side of Bedard and to be on the second line to move up if they need to switch up the lines. Whether that's bringing back somebody like Andreas Athanasiou or Max Domi, or maybe looking at one of the bigger free agents out there, even though this is a pretty weak class. I do think they will do that, but it's not like they're going to try to be a playoff team next year. I don't get the sense that they're going to pivot that quickly or that drastically. There's still a very long-term approach to this, and it's not like Bedard is probably going to be the superstar he'll eventually become right off the bat anyway. So I think they're still going to be fairly patient, but maybe a little bit more aggressive than they otherwise would have been.
Ben, when it was announced the Hawks got the first overall pick, a lot of negativity on hockey Twitter, both in the USA and Canada. You can understand why, the Kyle Beach incident. But do you see it? Do you see why there's so much negativity with the Hawks getting the first overall pick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious even going into the lottery that the most people were first rooting for their team to win, but second rooting for the Hawks to not win. Not only because of the sexual assault scandal, but also because they have had 3 cups still in the past 13 years, so more than any other team. So I get why a lot of hockey fans were not rooting for this outcome. I think the contrast between that 5.2 million in new sales and the $2 million fine that they received for the sexual assault scandal handling. I get why people are upset about that contrast too. But it just the way the ping pong balls fell, I think it's clear that it wasn't rigged after watching the video of the actual drawing with Bettman, and just a miraculous stroke of luck, and happened to go in the Blackhawks' favor. So I get why people are upset, but I think it was nothing really anyone could do. It was just the way it worked out.
They did pay a fine. They were punished somewhat, but what did the Kyle Beach situation do to the Blackhawks brand in Chicago, Ben?
Yeah, it certainly dealt it a hit. I know a lot of people were turned off by that, pledged not to support the team anymore. I haven't noticed really as much of a difference as I expected I would in terms of the fan base. I think maybe some people who left have just kind of tuned it out, and we don't really see them around or hear from them too much. And then other fans were upset about it, but the fact that they cleaned house and have made positive changes and have sort of vowed to not let that happen again, and the fact that it is a new regime have kind of excited to just move on. And so it certainly dealt them a hit, and it's something they're still working to recover from, to build back that trust, and not only in Chicago but around the entire hockey world. But they have made changes. They have brought in a number of team psychologists and put new policies in place for to prevent sexual harassment, and just provide more reporting options if something was to happen. So there have been changes, certainly for the better from this, but it's going to be a stain over their reputation for a while nonetheless, and deservedly so. So yeah, again, I get why people are upset about the contrast between that and them winning the lottery, but just the way the ping pong balls fell.
And Ben, are you confident the Hawks will do a solid job of marketing Conor Bedard?
Yes, absolutely. That's something they've definitely invested a lot in since that change, since Jamie Faulkner came in as business president in late 2020. They've invested a lot more in the sales and marketing departments. They really hadn't had to do that much of that during the Dynasty era. The All Nice product pretty much sold itself. So now that they're in this rebuild, they've had to be a lot more aggressive and innovative in terms of marketing and sales and that sort of thing. And so it's something that they've improved with a lot, and have learned how to get better. So I think Bedard will really be kind of, not to say a test subject, but sort of the example, the opportunity to show how much progress they've made in that way. And Chicago is a huge market, a city that loves hockey, and a city that hasn't had a ton of success across all sports the past few years. So having someone like that coming in, just the way they kind of have for Justin Fields with the Bears, I think is going to make a huge shockwave and really rile up the fan base and get a lot of support really quickly.
Ben, did you just say that Chicago hasn't had a lot of sports success over the last several years? Do you want to trade places with Vancouver?
Yeah.
Any
come
chance?
over here.
No, it's absolutely fair. I mean, almost every city, unless you're like Boston or something, can sort of claim that at some point. It's just hard to have success when there's 30 to 32 teams in every major sport. But when you look at the Bears finished last in the league this past year, the Cubs have fallen off since their World Series win. The White Sox are perpetually below 500. The Bulls have not been great lately, lost in the play-in round this year. So none of the teams are right now very good. Certainly you look back at the past decade and maybe things look a little bit better, but that was more of a short-term statement.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks so much for doing this. We'll get you back on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Ben Pope, writer, Chicago Sun